Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night, 7:11 p.m. Central. You got Jay McNicholas here with us tonight. How's it going, Jay?
It's going well. Got some eggnog ready to go.
Eggnog. Careful with that stuff. And we Mercury retrograde starting today. I don't usually try to carry on about that kind of stuff, but there is something to it, torturous for sure. But tonight's
It
guest,
seems to mess with our show more than anything else.
yeah, sometimes it's mostly just like feels like you're going through a cheese grater for a while. But
The wrong way.
tonight's guest, Les Velez. How you doing, Les? Good to have you here.
Great. Good to be here.
Great to have you. And let's see. I guess first off, I know we talked a little bit before the show that I want to tell you a little bit about my story while we're doing the show, and then I want to hear your story. Just to give you the condensed version of mine, the main reason we do this show is because we've seen weird stuff. And once you see it, you kind of never get over it, really. You always remember it, and then you want to see it more. And then you don't. And then sometimes you do. But my situation pretty much, when I was 17, I went through testicular cancer and had to go through chemo and stuff. And that was kind of like a spiritual catharsis for me. And then a year or so later, or two, I always lose count, my dad passed away. And then it kind of seemed like all that stuff triggered something or opened something. And I had a lot of ghost type sightings and then a lot of UFO stuff with witnesses, and friends were like, Jeffrey, it seems like you're attracting them here on some level. And I've kind of seen those things every house I moved to. And I was from Georgia, and that's where most of my stuff happened. But even down here in Florida, I still have weird stuff happen. But nothing quite like my Goldie Oldies when they all started. That's what I call them, my Goldie Oldies, the big ones that happened when it all started. But a lot of it was like stuff over the house. Like I don't go around saying I was abducted or anything. I don't know if I was. Maybe, that's a possibility because it does seem like there's been craft over homes, and maybe they were there for me completely. I don't know. Maybe they're making a stop in the neighborhood for everyone. I don't know. But you have to, you wonder, did they take me and do weird stuff to me? I don't know, but it's a possibility. But I honestly don't know. But I have seen some strange beings many times. I've seen beings of light leave my house down here in Florida as if they were in it, fly through the roof and go into the heavens, like two glowing beings of light. And I talked to shamans, to UFO people, and there's so many different theories to what they could be, deceased loved ones, ETs, or I still don't know what they were, but I didn't feel fear or anything from it. But there's been some other experiences, seeing cloaked beings with a black box in the woods with a friend in Georgia, and some other stuff that's happened. And that's kind of why we do the show. And what's so strange is when I first started doing this, there was a time where I had some trouble getting interviews, and then I said a prayer and had a big UFO sighting, and it kind of correlated. And then I started having crazy luck, and next thing you know, I'm on the phone with Stanton Friedman and Nick Pope and weird stuff. It was like, is this like, are aliens giving me the hookup? It's like my luck changed, and there was a UFO sighting. So I do think there's something, they're a good one to maybe, this is about raising consciousness. And I certainly think there may be some that aren't good out there. But that's the main reason we do it, is try to figure out what the hell happened, what the heaven happened. And that's why we do these interviews. But it's great to have you here. And I would definitely love to hear how you got started in the UFO field.
Well, Jeff, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Jay, I look forward to our chat tonight. It should be very interesting. For me, it started when I was 11 years old, living in Connecticut. And this one late October evening, I was coming back into the house after feeding my good old dog Caesar. And all of a sudden, over to my right, I noticed this object. It was totally silent. It was hovering there. It was a whitish oval type object, and it was slowly moving over the tree line, and then it finally just started to, slowly, very slowly, go into an area back back where my house was, and it scared the crap out of me. And I ran into the house and I tried to get my father to come out. And by the time I convinced him to come out, it had disappeared. And he says, "Well, it was probably a beacon of light reflecting off a cloud." Well, I didn't believe that. And next day I went to the library and I started looking for books on UFOs, and I found a number of them, and they were all books that George Adamski had written, and this goes back, as I say, to the late '50s, and so I really got totally involved with it, and tried to read everything I possibly could get my hands on with regard to the UFO phenomena. Well, that was when I was 11. And then, of course, I became an adolescent. And then girls became a little bit more interesting in my life and, started to date and eventually met a woman that became my wife eventually, actually, from the junior year of high school. And I went to the University of Vermont, and I was in the ROTC program and became a field artillery officer, and got married and had a couple of kids, and eventually moved out to California in 1985. And one day I picked up the San Jose Mercury News and saw this article about Stanton Friedman coming to San Jose City College to talk about UFOs and the government cover up. Well, of course, it was like somebody threw a switch. I kind of forgot about it for quite a while. And then this event occurred. So I said, okay, I'm going to go see him. And I expected to see a handful of people there. But in fact, the auditorium was packed. He gave one of his inimitable lectures. And on my way out, there was a table in the foyer that MUFON had information about their organization. And so I decided at that point to get their monthly journal. And I started to read this journal very religiously and read about various UFO cases around the country. But that wasn't enough. And I decided, okay, I'm going to take their field investigator training course. And I did. I passed that. And next thing I know, I'm starting to investigate cases where people have had sightings. Well, the interesting part about that was the fact that not only did these people have sightings, but they also claimed to have contact with non human intelligences. And that really blew the doors open on this whole phenomenon for me. That these people were starting to tell me things about their experiences where they saw something, but then they had missing time and that they didn't know where they were. And, they came back with strange marks on their bodies and all kinds of things like that, you've probably heard a million times already. But the bottom line was that these people also said at the same time to me, "Do you know of other people that are having similar experiences?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And the next thing that happens is that I'm facilitating a support group in San Jose, California. So that experience, listening to these people, all whom have had these type of experiences, was phenomenal. I learned more listening to these people tell their stories about their experiences than any book I had picked up to that point. And of course, then the stories that came about were just, some of them were phenomenal. One of the cases that I had was a couple that were picnicking in a state park north of Santa Cruz. And they were coming out of the park near dusk, and they noticed this light over the ocean and the Pacific Ocean. And the light got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was literally over their heads. And it was a large triangular craft. Actually, it was about the size of a small Learjet in size. And this craft just moved silently, no noise, into a canyon behind where they were, and they noticed another light over the ocean, and the same scenario happened. This thing eventually got over their heads, and it was again this triangular craft that was about the size of a Learjet. And the first one, when they felt they were looking at it. The second craft, they felt it was looking at them, and they became frightened, and so they backed up underneath a big old pine tree. And I eventually went up to this area where they were and went through this whole scenario with them. Well, this happened 5 more times. There was a total of 7 craft that showed up, and we're sitting in this valley in a side by side in a horizontal position, and then like the whole group went into this vertical position, and they like went around a corner, but there was no corner to go around. It was like they went into another dimension, or they just dematerialized in some way, shape, or form. So at that point, they finally started to leave the park, and they felt like they were on automatic pilot, like they were floating. And this area of the park, even during the daytime, is kind of treacherous. It's rocky, it's very dark. And so at night, it would be almost impossible unless you had, a lot of light, which they didn't have at that point. And they felt that they just started to go down this path. And that was the last thing they remembered until they showed up in a restaurant in a town called Pescadero 3 hours later. And this restaurant is only like 10 minutes away from the park, and they have no recollection whatsoever of what had happened to them. They eventually showed up at one of our support group meetings, and they had contracted a rash after this event, and they had gone to a doctor, and one doctor said, well, that area of the park is got a lot of poison ivy and poison oak, and but it's not that. I don't know what it is. And then they finally went to another doctor, and the doctor looked at it and said, it might be some internal reaction to something, but I don't know what it is. So they took a picture of it. They brought it to the support group meeting, and they showed it around. And almost without exception, each of the persons in the group had said that they had at one time or another had a similar rash. And so one of the people in the group says, well, I think I know what that's from. And so we said, okay. And they said, well, it's a reaction to the fluid that they dip you in to sanitize you when they bring you on board the craft. So that was a one hell of a revelation.
That is definitely something. And what was did they say the type of beings that it was? Is it usually the grays that come up most of the time, or what kind of beings?
Yeah, one of the things that we just, myself and a gentleman by the name of Russ Calpone, who was involved with the free study, we just finished the first phase of a study called the Omega-4 study. How clever of us to come up with that name. And we had gone out to therapists who had worked with people that have had contact with non-human intelligences. And the number one entity that comes up are the grays. However, the second most talked about contact is with orbs. And then the third are interdimensional. And the fourth are ghosts. And so we found that there's a lot of connection between not only the UFO type of phenomena, but also of other types of paranormal phenomena that go on. And so it was interesting to see that, ghosts showed up and orbs showed up. But number one certainly was the grays. And, it almost seems like all the mantids and the reptoids and the Nordics and have this supermarket in the universe that they can go to, and they all utilize grays because almost without exception, every abduction talk about the grays, but then there might be a mantid in the background, there might be a Nordic in the background, there might be a you know uh, whatever you can think of in the background, but they all utilize grays. So it's like this universal supermarket that all these entities go to, and it's almost like going to your your Verizon store or whatever mobile carrier you're utilizing
I
and
think in
say,
this
I
case it
want the
might be
latest
Terminex. Like
iPhone.
maybe it's Terminex. So they all these different UFO groups use the same bug catcher.
Yeah. And, and what it is that basically they're all afraid of us in a way that, they don't want to interact with us directly, but they send it in the grays to abduct us. Because I've had instances even in the Opus support group, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding that I co-founded in 1994 to help people having paranormal experiences, that they've ripped arms off of these grays, and they've bit them, or they've hit them, and so you can imagine that these other you know entities are quite fearful of interacting with us in a direct basis.
And wow, that's the first time I've heard a situation about ripping arms off of them. What did they say they reacted? Are they in pain, or was it just kind of like no big deal, we'll grow them back,
Yeah,
situation?
it's like no big deal. It's like then they disappear, and then somebody else comes in. So you don't get a reaction, like screaming or anything like that, because there's never any sound that comes out of these things. Maybe every once in a while you hear some kind of clicking or buzzing that goes on, but most of the time it's totally silent. And some people have had the ability to fight them off, and so that's a whole nother ball game.
It's definitely fascinating. Well, a lot of my being sightings have been like glowing beings of light,
Hmm.
and then the small hooded beings. And then I never really saw grays, but recently I was living with my fiance Christina, and we were doing hospice care at this house, and watching her grandmother who she transitioned a few months ago. And anyway, we had a situation where we saw some grays, and one of the situations was said she saw one standing over the bed at night over me. And then there was a situation where sometimes a lot of times I will go outside or stand at a window and close my eyes and let the white light from the sun fill me. You can see it. You go through your body, and it's kind of like a weird spiritual experience for me. And then I had done that, and then walked around the house and saw one standing in the room where the grandmother was. She was still alive then, but it was almost like it was astral or something. And it looked surprised that it saw me, and
Hmm.
kind of went like this, but it wasn't like physical. It was like it was like astral or something. It's hard to
Hmm.
explain, like a pink color, but you could see the shape of it.
Hmm.
And that was kind of my first experiences with those, and they definitely seem creepy. And just the fact that these beings may use them for puppets to do their bidding, that's even creepier. Right? It's
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
Dracula. And so that's the being that comes up the most, and it's with the experiences and everything. Is there any, do other beings come up at all ever, like different kinds, or is
Well,
it?
I think the majority of the cases still are, as I mentioned, the grays, like number one. But then you have the praying mantis type. You have the Nordic type. You have even sometimes, especially with regard to Native Americans, indigenous people, the ant people. Um, and and supposedly there's a multitude of species that are visiting us, and people have described various other types of entities. Whether it's the reptoids, the mantids, the Nordics, etc., seem to be like the number, 1, 2, 3, 4 combination that shows up. But the thing is that these people that are having experiences often feel that they're going crazy, and then they go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and they find out that they're not. So then what's going on? And that's the $64,000 question, as they say from the old game show. uh, that is it something that is real? Is it something that is surreal? It certainly is. I think both, uh, because you have the capability, as we've found out, working with these people, that you can astral travel. You can have out of body experiences. People have had near death experiences. Oh my goodness, that's a very interesting phenomena. Uh, I got involved shortly after the support group got set up in San Jose. I was written up in a Monterey Coast Weekly paper, and about what I was doing with MUFON and doing the various investigations. And there was a woman in the article as well by the name of Carol Austin that was written about the things that she was doing. And she contacted me afterwards and said, "Hey, I'd like to find out what's going on with my brainwaves when I'm in contact with these, extraterrestrial entities." And so I thought to myself, well, I'm not sure I know how to, help you in that regard. But then she said she was working with an emergency room doctor down in Carmel. And so I had a doctor friend by the name of Eugene Lipson, and he was very interested in working with other doctors that were interested in the phenomena. And so I contacted him, and he said, "Gene, come on, let's go down and see this lady and see what we can find out. It sounds rather interesting, and you'll get an opportunity to meet this other doctor." So we went down there one Saturday afternoon, and as we walked in to her home, there was a picture on the wall, and she was standing on the back of a boat, a rather large boat. And I asked her, I says, "So, what's this all about?" And she says, "Oh, yeah, I was down in the Caribbean with these guys, and we were treasure hunting." And I said, "How were you, working with these guys treasure hunting?" She says, "Well, I was in contact with the captain of the galleon that had gone down in the Caribbean." And so that started the afternoon off, and she continued. She started to tell us things about ourselves that there was no possible way that she could know anything about us, really, because I'd never had any contact with her before that, and certainly not with Jean. and and so we came away from that afternoon saying, how could we possibly help a person like that? And that was the afternoon that we hatched the idea of Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, which in 1994 became a nonprofit 501c3 organization recognized by the IRS, which always cracks me up because paranormal and IRS is like an oxymoron of some sort, but maybe not. Uh, so, um, and we've been doing what we've been doing, and the mission, simply put, of Opus is to help people having paranormal experiences. And we're not just focused on the abduction phenomena, but you know spiritual awakening, poltergeist activity, things of that nature. So we have people that consultants that can address those various areas. But the two main things that we've found has been very helpful with these people that are having experiences like yourself, Jeff, is the fact that we have an online support group, which is totally confidential. If you go to our website, opusnetwork.org, there's a support button there where you can click that, fill out a short, very short form, and ask what it is that you're looking for. And most of the times, the people are looking to be part of the online support group, or they're looking for a hypnotherapist. And so we have resources that we can point people to help them in that regard. But the online support group is, we have almost 300 people in it now from around the world that are talking 24/7 to one another about their experiences and asking questions. And that's proven to be the most helpful thing for people, that they understand they're not alone, and that they can understand that other people are having similar experiences that they're having. And so it's proven to be quite helpful. And finally, after a number of years of people cajoling me to write a book, I put one out this past August that's on Amazon, called The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact. And in it, I try to cover the bases. If someone was just picking up a book and trying to understand what all of this is about, especially the abduction phenomena, we go from physical aspects, psychological aspects. We talk about the writing that people are doing. We talk about the marks on the body, the implants. We talk about the debunkers, and they talk about, well, it's fantasy proneness, it's sleep paralysis. It's a plethora of other things that are possible. But I think I do a pretty good job of debunking the debunkers and saying, folks, we got stuff going on here, and it needs to be looked at in a serious way. And so I think that if somebody picks up that book on Amazon, they can either go to our website, opusnetwork.org, it's right there, or just go to Amazon and put that in there. All the proceeds of that book go directly to Opus. I don't get a dime. That's my contribution to the cause, so to speak.
And I know PTSD comes up probably a lot with a lot of these cases. I would just kind of like to hear your perspective on that. I think I have some from mine, just the fact that, I mean, there was a time where I didn't want to leave my house. I thought something was going to get me out there, and that was in Georgia. So, I mean, I'm sure the trauma and stuff, how does that come up?
Yeah, it comes up frequently. And I think the best thing to do is to be able to get with a licensed therapist that, like Yvonne Smith. Matter of fact, Yvonne Smith is on our advisory board for Opus, and she specializes in PTSD. Um, and we also have Linda Moulton Howe on our advisory board. We have Terry Lovelace, and then we have Melinda Leslie on our advisory board. So, we have the resources to point people in the right direction when it comes to things of that nature. And certainly, working with people that have PTSD is critical. You need to have people that have the knowledge uh, of that phenomena and are able to work with it and help people. That's so important.
And during some of my UFO encounters, it seemed like some kind of possible military agency came out, and none of them talked to me face to face, but there was a craft that was silent over my home with a cockpit, and a guy waved mockingly kind of at us and it went away, which I don't know if it was mockingly, but he definitely was like, I'm here. And it kind of seemed like it revolved around the UFO situation, like they had sent something out to see. And somehow I pinpointed that I was connected to the phenomenon on some level. Is that something that comes up a lot? Met some weird, agency showing up or something like that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We, people ask me all the time, what is it? What do you think it is? And I said, is it extraterrestrial? Is it interdimensional? Is it time travelers? Is it the military? Well, I believe it's all the above.
All the
I
above.
absolutely all the above. Our military is so involved with this. They've managed to keep a cap on the whole thing for years and years. But with the advent of the UAP report and the end of June, maybe this is the beginning of exposing things. It's a long time coming. They've changed the name of ATIP. I don't know how many times. Now this organization is called the Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group.
Wow. That's a
Okay.
long acronym
Yeah.
for the new government UFO agency.
And they put it under the Defense Department, and now people are very worried that this is something that's going to go nowhere fast, and that this is just going to get buried in the bureaucracy. And I don't know if you've noticed, but Lou Elizondo has been very quiet of late.
I saw something about that. Yeah.
And he's on a hiatus, so to speak. So I don't know what that's about, but I've just, matter of fact, put together an email that's going to go to him and see if I can bring him out and chat with him. I want
to. They finally got to him. Maybe, I don't know. You don't
yeah, it's
know
possible.
until you know.
It's totally possible. Unfortunately, this stuff is dynamite. I was lucky to, just before COVID shut everything down, I had lunch with Lou when he was interviewing Terry Lovelace, actually, for the Unidentified series, which that particular interview never got on the air for whatever reason. I'm not sure. I think it might have gone too far because of the things that Terry had said with his experience. I think you've had him on your show, if I'm not correct. Did you have Terry?
I've interviewed him before. Yes.
Yeah, and so he's got some pretty dynamite stuff to talk about. And Terry just lives down the road from me here, so he's good buddies with me. And anyway, that afternoon we had lunch with Lou, and Lou was telling us some stuff about that they believe they understand the propulsion systems of these craft way better now than they ever have. Uh, and and that's something that's not out there really. It's a combination of the material that the craft is made out of. And I asked him, I says, do you think this uranium 215 is the or element 115, excuse me, is necessary? Oh no, he says, don't need that much power. So, you know, uh, there's there's so much to be learned that or not learned but to be exposed that is going on in that realm, and then the other part, and this I had opportunity to chat with Nick Pope at the MUFON Symposium this past August in Las Vegas. And he was talking about the UAP report and saying that, I hope it's the Russians or the Chinese that have this capability because we can pick up the phone and talk to them. And so I cornered him later and I said, hey, you know what? You're missing the boat on this whole thing. I said, the experiencers are already telepathically talking to them, you know? So if you want to communicate with them, just get a hold of a couple of these experiencers. They'll connect you. And so, you know, I don't think it's the Russians. I don't think it's the Chinese. I don't think it's us. To a certain degree. Although now that my mindset is actually changing a little bit on that regard, I think that we certainly have capabilities. You know, if you believe what the recent head of the Skunk Works had said before he passed away, that we have the technology to take ET home. Um, so maybe there some of these things are ours, but I really believe that this has been going on for centuries and eons, and so it was definitely before we had the technology to do that. And so I believe, yes, we're being visited. We're not alone, folks. And then if you believe the that Israeli general that published a book, which is not in English yet, about the fact that we are in contact with these aliens. They're here. We're working with them. We have bases on the moon. We have bases on Mars. And again, if you would ask me 5 years ago if I believed that, I would have probably said no. But now, we have this quote unquote space force. And so all of a sudden we have a space force. And so, you know, there's a
Yeah.
lot more out there that is to be found out about for sure.
One of the things I've noticed, and I'm kind of curious to your perspective on it, but I've seen a lot of the exopolitics stuff, and a lot of that I'm like, okay, yeah, right. But maybe I'm wrong, but it's just kind of hard. Some of it, like for instance, they just said something about the cabal went to Antarctica and surrender. Now the Liberation Light Force or whatever's in charge, and evil's conquered. It's like that's the newest story. Maybe that's true, but I don't know. I just have a little trouble with it. Some of it
Yeah.
seems kind of far out there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that's out there that is a little hard to digest.
Yeah.
Linda Howe's had a program on the Antarctic, and that a couple of people have come forth. The military people have talked about uncovering a base down there that is probably millions of years old and
Yeah.
was still active. And when you hear things like that, it's mind bending, but at the same time, what a great place to bury something,
Yeah.
uh, that we would probably normally never go to, and so
Yeah, something's going on there, but you got to have
yeah,
discernment with some of the goofier stuff for sure, and be
uh,
careful for sure.
absolutely, absolutely.
I got a story for you that you might find interesting. I had Jesus Payon Jr. on, and he's one of the characters on that show Breaking Bad. He's one of the
Hmm.
big Mexican cartel dudes,
Uh-huh.
Gonzo or something. But he has a YouTube channel called Breaking Bigfoot, and he gets
Hmm.
amazing Bigfoot stuff that will just like surprise you. Like you can see their nose and mouth. He gets UFO stuff too. But he was on the show, and he said that he was taken aboard a UFO, and the guy seems very honest and cool. I mean, doesn't seem like he'd be making it up for any reason. And I was like, wait a minute, what did you say? He goes, I was aboard a UFO. And then
Hmm.
here's this thing. He said after that pillow, and then they wanted him to draw the propulsion systems. And if it happened again, and it didn't happen again, but that's a weird story from the Breaking Bad dude.
Yeah.
Story. That was
Well,
pretty
many
fascinating.
people that have had experiences have, been certainly brought on board craft. Some of them have even had the ability to drive the craft. They've they've been at. Do you want to drive the craft? Sure. Okay, here you
Yeah,
go. you know,
I'd say
and
yes.
yeah, of course.
Give me that
Um,
wheel.
Terry Lovelace's story too. I mean, he was taken on board a craft. They went around the backside of the moon. They saw all these facilities back there, and all this kind of stuff. And Terry's not a nutcase. He's definitely not. I mean, he's the ex attorney general, assistant attorney general for the state of Vermont. He's a lawyer. I mean, he's practiced law for many years. He definitely doesn't have a psychopathology. So what the hell is going on, folks? It's stuff that it just blows your mind. And how do you uh, factor that into what's happening here, on the earth? I mean, all these experiences that people are having, 70 to 80% of these people don't want them to stop. The majority, the ones that are left, that have had negative experiences, definitely want it to stop. And people have asked me, so do you believe like Bud Hopkins and Jacobs that they're all bad, or like Greer that they're all good? And I think we have just like we have here on the earth, we have good people and we got bad people. And I think we got the same thing going on up there. We have good aliens and we have bad aliens. And I think even within the species of aliens, that you
Mhm.
probably have good ones and bad ones as well. So it's a very complicated mix that's going on. It's very difficult to definitively say one way or the other. And then,
Yeah, definitely. And then when people like, try to label whole races as evil, like all the reptilians are evil. I mean, that's kind of
yeah,
like genocidal behavior. They're doing the
yeah,
whole race is
yeah,
evil.
It's the same
yeah,
propaganda they did in the Cold War. They had us convinced as teenagers that all Russians were fat and ugly and wanted to kill Americans, and then you've come to find out that's not the case at all. I mean, it's
yeah.
completely the opposite.
Oh, yeah, exactly, exactly. And, you know, we're so tribal here on this planet, unfortunately, that it's going to probably take another millennia or two before we get to the point where, we stop, these wars, and you know, people in the support group that Opus has, we've been talking a lot recently about some big things coming down in the near future that are quite negative. And um, there was a clairvoyant out of Bulgaria who passed away. I forget her name. She passed away, I think, in the late 60s. Talked about the fact that in 2027, that an asteroid would hit the Earth that was guided here by the aliens. So, folks, you know, and she predicted the 2001 9/11 incident, and she hit it right on the nose.
Was she
Uh,
was she Russian? Is that Baba Vanga
no, she
lady?
Bulgarian,
Okay,
Bulgarian.
yeah. It said, okay, yeah. I
Yeah,
see her right here. It says she's revered in Russia, and then yeah, there it goes, Bulgarian. That's her,
yeah,
Baba Vanga. She's
yeah.
like a
Right,
blind prophet lady.
right. Yeah, and so um, I can only hope she's totally wrong.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, a lot of these people, you know, the especially the abductees, the experiencers, come away from these experiences with psychic ability. This woman that I mentioned you earlier, Carol Austin, that we had gone down to see in Carmel. Um, she had had a near-death experience and became very psychic afterwards. Um, and you hear story after story. There was a doctor, a female doctor, that had been on a kayaking adventure down in South America and went over a falls and got trapped under the falls for 30 minutes. Now, most people, when you're underwater for 30 minutes, you're not going to survive. And she saw during this period of time these entities, and it felt very loving and warm, and so she basically decided, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go with you people, whatever you are. And they said, no, 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 you can't go. You can't go. You have things to do. And then they told her this fact, which blew my mind, that her son, who was a child at that point, would die when he was 18 years old. And so she came out of this thing. She was rescued. She was fine after being underwater for 30 minutes. And later on, when her son turned 18, he did die in a car accident. And
Mm.
so these psychic abilities, and I have a friend up in Canada who's a psychic, and she's worked with police departments and finding bodies, and she's also worked with people that have had, family issues. And this one particular issue was with a woman, and she was working with the woman talking about her particular issues, but she stopped her and said, "Hey, look, you need to be really pay attention to your son, because I see that he's got real problems, and he may commit suicide." And she said, "Oh, no, 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 we know all about him. He's going to be fine." And da 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 da. Long story short, he finally committed suicide. So where where is that coming from? How do psychics tap into this timeline? Or is there a timeline? There is no timeline. It seems like time and space is irrelevant. Uh, you know, they can tap into anything, anywhere, anytime.
Definitely fascinating when psychics come true like that, for sure. One thing I wanted to ask, and then I'm sure Jay's got some questions, is I told you I'd seen these beings of light many times with
Hmm.
my physical eyes. I've seen them in the heavens. I've seen them leave my house, and I'm just kind of curious. Does that come up often? Beings of light, is that something that comes up a lot?
Oh yeah, yeah. We have we have portals opening up in people's rooms, and these beings come through that are light beings.
Portals.
Yeah, the portals. All of a sudden, a room will start to light up in a yellow light or a blue light, uh, and yeah, I've orbs show up and fly around the room. And you know, uh, Joe Firmage had the experience of a blue orb going into his body, and afterwards, he got so involved with the whole UFO thing for many, many years. And I don't know what the hell he's doing these days, but
Mm.
um, anyway, yeah, beings of light. Interdimensionals, orbs, you name it. People are experiencing these types of things, and uh, you know, some people, in the book, I have about 25 stories from the people in the support group that talk about their personal experiences. And I think people would find it very interesting to read those stories, because it covers the gamut of the various types of experiences. People talking about reincarnation and how significant reincarnation is with regard to this phenomena. Um, One of the support group meetings that I had, facilitated, um, a person talked about seeing me. And I said, "Oh, you're at a UFO conference?" He said, "No, I saw you on board a craft." I said, "Really?" I said, "Okay." I kind of blew it off. And it was like a year and a half, 2 years later, that another person said, "I saw you." And I said, "Where? UFO conference, grocery store, or whatever?" They said, "No, no, no. I saw you sitting on this bench naked on board the craft, and you were freaking out, and they told me to go over to calm you down." And so at that point, I decided that I'm going to go get regressed. And I had three separate regressions, and none of the regressions showed up with anything regarding alien contact. However, I had multiple past lives, uh, which each one of them affected me to the extent that I mean, I was dissolving in tears talking about it. And so uh, somebody, I told this story to, and they said, you know, maybe you were abducted, but it was an abduction in a previous lifetime. And so perhaps this person also was reflecting on something that might have happened in a previous lifetime. And one of the stories by Adam in our book talks about his conversation with the aliens and reincarnation. And he talks about how they abduct people and how they basically disassemble your atoms and then reassemble them when they bring you back. Uh, which then goes to the fact that, well, some people feel that they're astral traveling, they're having out of body experiences, but
Yeah.
then other people are talking about the fact that they're having real body experiences, that they get on board a craft and fluids are taken out of their body, semen or eggs are taken, things of that nature. There's a plethora of phenomena and experiences that are going on that are mind-boggling, and we don't have the answers to what the hell is going on.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. If they're going to abduct us, at least give us some clothes, bro, for sure. Don't just leave us around naked up there. That's what I wonder. I wonder about stuff with me psychological, if that's happened, and I just don't remember it. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
I'm so crazy now. but there's definitely,
But Jeffrey, you're not crazy. You are experiencing a phenomena that more and more people are experiencing. I mean, if you think about the Roper organization back in the early '90s, that Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs put together with the funding of Robert Bigelow, they found that there was like 6 million people back then that supposedly had been abducted, and this is a worldwide phenomena, and it's a lot later now, since the '90s. Can you imagine how many people have been abducted, and what's the purpose of that? What's the purpose of abducting us? If you believe David Jacobs, there's this hybridization process going on. And what's the purpose of that? Is it to take over the planet via, this means where, hey, they don't have to come down and, shoot their ray guns or anything like in Mars Attacks, which I just saw again today. God, when's the last time you saw that movie? It is a hoot.
Yeah, Mars Attacks is
It's
fun
been
to
a
watch. I
while.
saw it I saw it earlier in the year, I think. But the
Yeah,
comics
yeah.
are a trip too. But I have a book that's filled with those tops cards. It's just like a hardcover book, and you flip through it, and it's just got the tops cards in it, and it's pretty,
Uh-huh. Oh
pretty,
yeah,
pretty.
top cards. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
that's a trip. Someone from the chat, Michelle Millions, is asking, is there any support group or doctor for someone that possibly has had a visit, then years later discovered they may have had an implant? I was just going to see, maybe you want to give your link again to one of them.
Sure.
What was your link?
Yeah, people should contact us at opusnetwork.org. Opus, OPUSNETWORK.org, O-R-G. And you can hit the support button, and we'll try to help you out as best we can.
Cool. Yeah, Jack Nicholson in Mars Attacks. That takes the cake for sure. For sure. Anything with old Jack Nicholson in it. It's a good one.
But at the same time, uh, that movie has a lot of interesting points in it that, on a more serious note, you can see the conflict between the people that are saying, oh, they're all good, we're gonna, they're coming here to help us, save us, and then you got the people on the other side, let's nuke them right now, let's nuke them right now and get
yeah.
rid of them, you know and so you see that conflict going on, and then you see the technical aspects of the whole phenomena. um, there's a whole nother level on that movie that's very interesting.
Tim Burton. That was definitely a good Tim
Yep.
Burton for
Yep.
sure. And I know there's a lot of comics. I've never read any of them, but I've seen them. They look crazy as hell too. Like there's weird crossovers and stuff, like
Yep.
Batman versus Mars Attacks or something weird like that, for sure. But a shaman told me that some of the dead can travel. I don't know if he said some of, but he said the dead can travel in spears of balls or orbs on
Hmm.
some level. And at one point, I had an experience where I saw some pyramid crafts parked over some power lines just floating in the air with a friend, and a golden ball of light came out of them. And I remember it coming towards us, but I don't remember much more. And I remember asking that dude later if he remembered that years later, and he didn't even remember it. And he was right there, and I know we saw it. So that was kind of weird too. Like, you
Yeah,
don't remember that? That was pretty big, man. He didn't remember at all.
that happens often, where you'll have two people or even a group of people standing there observing something, where only one of the people in the group sees it. And is that a physical ability? Because our visual spectrum is this narrow, and yet there's all kinds of things out here if you spread that out. And some people have a broader spectrum capability to see things. But then again, is this more of a spiritual thing, where some people are ready to see something like this and others are not? And I think that it's a combination of both. That you have a physical aspect to it, but also a spiritual aspect to it. And I think this whole thing that we're talking about is a spiritual journey that people are having. Jeff, you're having a journey that is very spiritual. And I don't mean religious; it's spiritual. It's an understanding that you've probably changed a lot since you've had these experiences, and in a positive way, I would think. And yes, it's scary. It can cause a lot of stress, but at the same time, if you understand that you're not the only person that's having these kind of experiences, then it takes a lot of pressure off, I think. And so one of the things I would recommend, if you want, hit our site and join the group.
Definitely.
We'd love to
Well,
have you.
definitely. I'll check it out as well. We got someone asking, when will Jay speak in the chat? Did you see that, Jay?
No, Jay can't speak. It's
Yeah,
sorry,
he
he'll not
can.
No,
come
I,
on
I
Jay
stage.
don't.
can jump in at any time, but now if he wants to ask questions, he can ask them
I wasn't
anytime.
looking at that thing
He's
there.
not my servant or anything, but he can jump in anytime. Jay, please ask some questions to make
Yeah, I actually had a good
Randy
one
happy.
about the different wounds that we find, and you mentioned the implants and whatnot. But the story that intrigued me about the different wounds and you hear about them through almost every abduction story. This one, I don't know if this is an abduction story or not, but it was like way back in the 50s. A guy he actually physically encountered a craft on the ground, and then as he inspected the craft, there was like he called it like a HVAC grate. There's had a series of
Yep.
holes in a grid, and it sent steam out and burnt him on his skin, and then left the distinct pattern of that grid from the machine on his
Hmm.
skin. And
Yep.
legend has it that the wound would disappear and then reappear years and months later. Do you have any experience with that? With the wound being caused by a UFO and then disappearing and reoccurring in the exact same place year and year and year again?
Yeah, there's, you know, one of the things I talk about in the book, James McCampbell, who's a physicist who I knew very well and actually was part of the MUFON group up in Northern California, talks about the effects of microwave energy, gamma ray energy, X-ray energy that these craft exude, and that it also explains a lot of the capabilities of these craft. And so a lot of the physical aspects that people talk about uh, can be related to microwave type energy. And so certainly he was hit with that. And uh, just as the crop circles, these crop circles, when they're made, they're made almost instantaneously, and people, mow the crops, and then a year later you come back and you can still see the remnants of it. It's still
Yeah,
there.
you can see it.
Uh,
It's the shadow of it.
yeah, exactly. So it's the same type of a thing with humans too. Um, I think that gentleman, that was a case up in Canada that happened to, and
Maybe.
I think he eventually succumbed to his injuries from being close to that craft.
Well, he was.
So
Yeah, I believe he was actually diagnosed with radiation sickness as well. I mean,
yes,
he had been
right.
radiated, so
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So, that that's the kind of thing that, uh, you know, uh, I remember one time I decided to go to a quote unquote conscious channeler uh, to do a little reading, and I asked the person if I would ever have the opportunity to get on board a craft, and they said that, well, it might come up. And I said, well, should I get on board? And she said a very interesting thing to me. She said, well, I would go with your gut. And if you feel comfortable, go ahead. If not, stay away. And that's the way I've always treated this whole phenomena, in a way where if I get involved with a group or a person or something, I go with my gut and say, yeah, this doesn't feel right for me, or yeah, this is a possibility. Yeah, you gotta go with as many of your senses as you can possibly rally to understand some of this stuff. But there are aspects of it that is just impossible to really get your arms around.
Yeah, the whole implant thing, I think was what was that doctor's name? He was a podiatrist.
Yeah, Roger Lear, Dr. Roger
Right,
Lear.
right, yeah, exactly. Lear, like similar to the Learjet you brought up earlier. The information he brought up was fantastic. I mean, I think before he died, he had been witness to 27 implant removals. Like as an observational doctor in the room while the implant is taken out. Um,
It was actually 17, and I'll read you
17. Okay.
what he had talked about. He said there's no inflammatory or rejection reaction by the body to the foreign objects, no visible portal of entry,
Hmm.
collections of specialized nerve endings surrounding the object, an outer coating of ceramic biological material, a metallic phase where inorganic metal becomes biological tissue, the emission of radio waves, which are deep space frequencies in the FM band, have been noticed.
Yeah.
Electromagnetic fields in excess of 10 milligauss. Composition of meteoric or iron 66. Rare earth metals such as U-236, a single isotope of uranium existing by itself, as well as elements such as uridium, which is a very rare and hard to find Earth's in Earth's crust. Non-terrestrial isotopic ratios indicating the involved elements did not come from Earth. The existence of carbon nanotubes and gold spheres. I mean, the stuff was just mind blowing. What he actually came up with, and
The data he came out with, and then also the data that Dr. John Mack came up with, because most of his research is all based on the alien abduction phenomenon. And he took over from another doctor, the University of Boston or University of Massachusetts, I forget which. But his predecessor had actually interviewed Barney and Betty Hill, who started the whole ball of wax for the abduction
right,
phenomenon.
who did the he was a psychiatrist. I
Right.
forget I forget
He,
his name right now, but
yeah,
yeah,
same
did
here.
the regressions on both Betty and Barney Hill.
Right.
And
Yes. He had
yeah,
pioneered the
yep.
technology, and he was the head of the psychology school at it was either University of Massachusetts or University of Boston. I forget which one of those.
Hmm.
But John Mack, when he came into that, was a skeptic 100%. He's like, "There's no way. It can't be aliens." And within, I think, if it's been a while since I've talked about John Mack, but I think within 3 years of him doing the research of interviewing these abduction phenomenon experiencers, within 3 years, he was convinced that it wasn't of the mind, it wasn't hallucinations, it wasn't post hypnotic suggestions, but that it was a real experience, and they were really experiencing alien encounters. So those two subjects right there were enough for me to say it's real.
Yeah, there's absolutely something going on, and then the big question is, what is it? Um, and
Yeah.
I believe that people certainly believe that it is real and that it's happening to them. And you know, is it some kind of a bizarre psychopathology that we don't understand? Uh, I don't think so.
Mm.
Um, and is it some form of hallucination that's going on? Is it lucid dreams that become more than lucid dreams? Uh, these are all valid questions, but the bottom line seems like when these people come back with marks all over their body, implants in their body, uh, that it's a lot more than just something a figment of their imagination. And so I think it needs to be taken very seriously, and it's unfortunate that the scientific community has not taken a more serious look at it. And but
Mhm.
hopefully, as this thing is opening up with the UAP reports and the government getting involved now with trying to understand what these objects are, that the abductee community gets a more serious look, which I think is probably going on behind the curtain, so to speak. That the government is very much interested in what these people are experiencing, and to that end, uh, Kit Green and Gary Nolan from Stanford University, have interviewed a number of experiencers, and they talk about the part of the brain, the connections between the caudate and the putamen area, where there's a lot more connections in people that seem to have psychic abilities. And is this the old chicken and the egg, where are these people been modified by the aliens way back when, manipulating their DNA, their genes? Or is this something that's awakened by these experiences in these people? And certainly, it's a family thing. Jeffrey, have your family members, your parents, your grandparents had any experiences like you're having?
I know, my brother and nephew have seen some stuff,
Hmm.
at times with me, but as far as that, I don't recall anything. I do remember my dad, who's passed, saying he saw some like Native American chief ghosts before, and he didn't drink or do anything. He didn't, use drugs or anything, and he saw that, and I always thought it was kind of weird because it was something he normally, would not kind of bring up that kind of stuff.
Right,
So we've had
right.
some ghost kind of sightings and stuff, but the UFO stuff, I've had, siblings see stuff, and most of the time
Hmm.
it was with me though and stuff like that. But other than that, I don't know of any.
Yeah, but yeah, it seems to be very common, and that they seem to be following, generations of people, uh, and so it's
You know,
you know.
they're targeting specific gene patterns is what I think is going on there. It reminds me very much of Frank Herbert's book. They had the Bene Gesserit, the female, the technology witches in the book, or they were intentionally manipulating bloodlines to make this Kwisatz Haderach this special super being. I don't know that that's what their ultimate goal is, but they're definitely they're targeting specific genetic qualities in our race. There's no question
One of the
whatsoever.
things I talk about in the book is the blood types that predominate with the abductees. O negative and then A negative seem to be at the top of the hit parade for people, and then also eye color is another one where hazel green eyes seem to be very popular for whatever reason, and that scares me a little bit because I do have hazel green eyes.
Hazel green eyes, huh?
Yeah, but anyway, uh,
Well, I mean, it's we laugh about it now, but is it a funny situation? Is what they're doing for their benefit or for ours? You
Good
know,
question, Jay. Good question.
are they the ones trying to find that one bug that they can drop on this planet that will wipe us out? The planet is theirs, you know?
Yeah, well, they're trying to do a good job with this Omicron now, and the Delta before that, and
Mhm.
the regular thing. So this gal that predicted that in 2027 the Earth would be hit by an asteroid guided here by the aliens. Uh, she talks about another epidemic coming out of Siberia in 2024, uh, which is going to be even worse. So
That doesn't
who
actually
knows?
surprise me that they would say that'd be the area, because right now they're harvesting. Uh, they found, I don't know exactly where in Siberia, but somewhere out there they found a field of mastodons that were flash frozen during the Chicxulub meteor strike. So whatever happened during that cataclysmic event, these creatures, excuse me, the mastodons, mostly up in Russia, the climate changed so rapidly that it began to freeze almost overnight. So they were basically flash frozen in place while they were eating. So that some of them have like food in their
Yeah,
stomach still, and some of them
right. Yeah.
food it's not even ground up in their mouth yet, and they're cutting these things up like T-bones and selling them at restaurants up there. So there's where your there's where your next epidemic
That's a
is coming
pretty
from.
interesting meal, wouldn't it be? Uh,
I've had
Mastodon meat.
some weird stuff before. I wouldn't mind going out there to try one. get a get a mastodon burger or something.
Yeah, right. Oh my goodness. But anyway, it is just a mind blowing phenomena, and you know, getting back to the book, the unknown other and the existential proposition of alien contact, and going back to what you just said, what's the purpose of the things that are going on? Why are they abducting people? Is it for their benefit, or is it for some type of takeover that's eventually going to happen here?
Mhm.
What a clever way to do it, by hybridizing and then basically integrating themselves into us. That's quite clever, I think, where you don't have to, drop bombs or zap people with laser beams or whatever they have, death
There's a
rays.
story as to why that might be, and it's kind of what I think you would call consider a fifth column attack, where they slowly leak in troops behind enemy lines until it's time to declare war. Uh, but allegedly, and I don't have any proof on this, it just is throughout the years of finding out things. Allegedly, the Greys, who are doing most of the abduction and doing most of the experiments genetically, uh, they 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 consumed almost all the resources on their home planet, and their home planet is in the Zeta Reticuli system, and they have two stars revolving around each other. And on the other star system was another intelligent race, which was also within their own solar system, space worthy, as were the Greys. Initially, they were just they couldn't escape their solar system yet, but when they could, they met with these other, I guess you call them star sisters or whatever, and the Greys started a war with them, which went on longer than they wanted to, and allegedly they promised things to their friends on the other planet, and promises were not kept. And it's a lot of that is mirrored with what's went on in the 50s with Eisenhower, who allegedly gave them carte blanche to abduct people and created sort of a treaty called the Greada Treaty with them to garner technology from them given to
Hmm.
the U.S. government
Right.
in order for them to do their experiments without being observed or questioned. So it seems like a pattern with them that whatever it is that they're trying to trying to do, whether it's consume the entire planet, or maybe they're like the Borg, they just want to collect all the cool technology within the universe. I don't think it's in our best interest.
Hmm.
I really don't.
Yeah. Well, it's a question. It's a very valid question, and I think there's probably factors on both sides to really look at and say, yes, based on what they're doing, it certainly could be a negative outcome for us, or based on what people come away with the 80% of the people say they don't want these experiences to stop, their whole worldview changes, and they need to be better stewards of the planet. They need to be better people. They need to be better to one another. These are all very positive things, or are they just lying to us and just you know blowing smoke up our tailpipe here to uh, be able to do what they're doing, and not being obstructed from doing something like that. I think it's important to be somewhat skeptical uh, in this regard. You know, I don't come down on either side as far as being all positive or all negative. I think it's a combination thereof, and then it boils down to which side is going to be the winner. Are the good guys going to win, or the bad guys going to win? And that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, it's kind of scary to me, and a lot of people just seem to brush it away. But if you think of it like this, if they were really all true good, they wouldn't be hiding in the background. They wouldn't be hiding behind, some people say they have like the Predator technology. They can turn themselves invisible, like right in front of your face. Well, that's cool. But only an enemy would do that. You hide from something. You either hide from something that's going to hurt you, or that you intend to, at some point when it gets close enough, hurt it. You don't hide in the background if you're a friend, right? So there's whatever's going on. It's wishy-washy, and I don't think I want to know the answer, but
Yeah,
we
I
kind of
think.
need to know,
Yeah, I think that's very valid, Jay. I think that I think I said this earlier, that this general from Israel that is highly respected, who's retired, wrote this book about the fact that we have been in contact with the aliens. They're here. We have bases on the moon, on Mars. But the aliens don't want to show themselves at this point because they say we're not ready, whatever that means, and that we
Most of us aren't.
don't
We
understand
probably are.
space.
Yeah.
So, there's pluses and minuses to this whole thing, and we will find out one day, and hopefully not too late.
Yeah, I'm hoping within my lifetime at least, because
Yeah.
think of just the medical technologies they must have. I mean, they give you a shot and you live another 150 years. Give me 2 of those. Give me 2 of those right now. I want to go another 300. So,
Sounds good.
But yeah, there's a lot of, like you said earlier, rainbow colored smoke going up the wrong pipe. But if any of it's true, that's cool. If they're hell bent for leather, then we're there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, think about it. The technologies they have. It's been allegedly predicted that they have somewhere on the order of 1,000 to 10,000 years advanced history on us. So just think of the type of they've got scientific fiction weapons we haven't even imagined yet in their possession. If they wanted to take over this planet, they could do it like that yesterday.
Yeah, and
no
so
problem.
that's
not the goal. Clearly, something is. That's the scary part. Is what is the damn goal? Why are you being so secretive about it? And maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, maybe it's both.
Yeah. Yeah, why would they want to wait to take over? They could have done this eons ago, when we were, still climbing trees and, grubbing around in the dirt for grubs or something,
Yeah. And had our thumbs down where our wrists are. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They could have done that, eons ago. But now we have technology. We have the atom bomb. Look out, folks. So somebody talked about that today too, in the support group, that these missile silos that have been shut down. And that the aliens will not let us go to war, to throw nuclear weapons around, because they have that capability to do it. But then don't forget Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We were capable of doing that. They didn't stop us then. So
I don't think they were prepared to stop us then, but allegedly, they as soon as they dropped the first, well, they had enough to make 3. They blew up the first one to make sure that the device worked, and then they dropped the other 2. We may have caught them off guard. I don't know, but allegedly, and I'm not a physicist. I'm not a quantum scientist, but according to alien testimony, what else can you call it? That the nuclear weapons, when they go off, disrupts the subspace continuum in some form that makes travel for them difficult or causes some sort of problems on their end. And I don't see how us lighting off a candle here on this side of the galaxy affects them 5,000 light years that way. But that's what they say.
No, it's it's a real mind bender, as far as trying to understand the possible physics of any of this. But we have scientists today that don't believe that we can go faster than the speed of light, or these aliens don't have the capability to go from Zeta Reticuli to here, in a nanosecond. But then you take a look at Star Trek Discovery, and their spore drive, where they can instantaneously go anywhere they want to go.
Yeah.
These are just some things that I'm sure, based on the fact that their technology is so far advanced, that they probably have already figured it out.
Yeah, and the thing about scientists that always say no, I hate them. I don't like them. I think that they're poor scientists when they say nothing can be done. If you look at it, we have light, we have candles, we have light bulbs. The particles coming out of that are traveling at the speed of light. So it is possible to travel the speed of light. So any scientist who tells you no, he's lying to you. And then one of the best examples I have to tell you when a scientist is wrong is the easiest test ever. Have you heard of the Trieste?
I'm not sure.
The Trieste was the first bathyscate that we ever made to go down at the bottom.
That Trieste. Okay.
So they had scientists, marine biologists, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers to make the submarines that send 2 guys down 8 miles into the bottom of the ocean to look for life. Well, half these scientists on one side said, there's no way, we can't find it, it's impossible, the water down there, it's more like ammonia, the pressures are too great, there's no light, there's no heat, it's too cold, yada yada, all these reasons, no life can be down there. Then on the other half, you had Jacques Cousteau was part of this half. They said, we're going to find something. We'll find something, bacteria, we're going to find a frog, we're going to find some kind of weird squiggly creature down there, and we're all going to be stunned. And then there's no one in the middle. So there was yes and no. And what happened was they sent somebody down there, and they found a fish. And that fish scared up all the silt and scared up all this dirt, and they couldn't see too well, so they went back up early. But it just goes to show you how the curve works. All those naysayers were 100% wrong. All those guys that said, yes, we'll find something, were 50% right. They either found something or they didn't. Luckily, they found something. But it is almost, I've noticed, I'm only 55, I've noticed that it is almost impossible for something to not happen. The best example I have for that is we've got creatures that live on this planet. We've got creatures that live in the water. We have creatures that fly in the air. And we have creatures that live inside permafrost, inside volcanoes, inside dirt. Other creatures that can dry out and die for decades, and then if certain conditions recur, they regenerate. And they're saying there's no way there's life out there. Well, I guarantee you 2 things. One, not only is there vast life out on all the planets around us, but you will find, maybe not in my lifetime, maybe my great-grandson's lifetime, but in someone's lifetime, we're going to find that there is life that actually exists in the vacuum of space. Creatures like us that can live and breathe and recreate and reproduce children in outer space. Guarantee we're going to find that.
I think
it's a long way away, but it's out there.
Astronauts have talked about the Russians, I think, had an experience like that, where they actually saw these winged creatures flying around their craft, their capsule. And there's constantly life coming into our atmosphere from God only knows where. And, these spheres, these metallic spheres that are coming in with biological aspects to it. Um,
Hmm.
Somewhat like the things that implants that Roger Lear has taken out. Um,
Yeah, but
so
they have like a biological sludge in them. It's a recent
yeah,
discovery, but they have like a sludge that comes out of them.
yeah,
It's weird.
so,
It's,
yeah,
it's,
very,
it's
very.
like it's like the prequels to Alien with that those big blue creatures. The one guy opens that little silver sphere and he pours that goop in the river and changes the whole planet. That's what it's like.
Oh my goodness.
I know recently was it Harry Reid died. He was a big part of those UFO releases. The Democrat dude, that's his name, right? Harry Reid.
Harry Reid,
Yes.
I know
Hmm.
he passed recently,
Yeah.
but I know. Have you been keeping up with the skinwalkers at the Pentagon and all that stuff that's come out lately? Where supposedly I know Bigelow bought Skinwalker Ranch and all that stuff happened. Now someone else owns it when they have the show and everything. But I know that book supposedly. I have that book. I just haven't read it yet. But I know supposedly they went to study Skinwalker Ranch and some of that phenomenon followed the military personnel home or something like that. Have you been keeping up with all that stuff?
Yeah, and there's been some major physical effects, various types of diseases that people have contracted after these orbs had gone into the people. Yeah, I have the book. I read the book, and yeah, I can't think of the names. I mean, some of these, names of the diseases are uh, Guillain-Barré disease was one of them. Uh, you know, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
yeah, people have contracted disease. But on the opposite note, these orbs have also cured people. Uh, Kathleen Martin wrote, in, I think, a recent book about the fact that one of these people related a story where this object came into his body and he had cancer. And after this thing went in and came out, uh, shortly thereafter, he was cured of his cancer. So these things can be very beneficial and also the opposite. Um, one of the things you hear about people being healed. I was flying back from a MUFON symposium in Richmond, Virginia. This is years ago, and I was sitting next to a woman who turned out to be the head of St. Jude Hospital and doctor. And she related a story to me that happened before she was the head of the St. Jude Hospital.
it's his dog.
And bark, bark, bark. And she talked about this woman who had cancer, and she was going to be operated on the following morning. And so the doctors came in that morning and ready to wheel her in to surgery. And she said, I don't need to have the surgery. And they said, well, what are you talking about? And it says, well, I don't have it anymore. Well, wait a minute, And so they figured she was freaking out, and they said, "Well, look, let's go in and we'll just take another X-ray and make sure what's going on." So they did, and it was gone. And they said, "Well, so how did you know that you no longer have the cancer?" And they said, "Well, they came last night and they cured me." So, um, and it's amazing. I had the opportunity also in this past August to talk to Robert Salas, the major that was in charge of the missile silos at Malmstrom Air Force Base.
He's been on
Uh,
before. It's a good one for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he and his wife both have been abducted. They've both had experiences. And I don't know if people know that, but so I had an opportunity to sit down and talk with them. And his wife afterwards became a healer based on that contact.
Wow.
And many times you hear people coming away from those situations becoming healers And so not only getting healed, but becoming healers.
It's definitely interesting. I believe that when I went through testicular cancer and chemo, and I lost one in the war, so to speak, that trauma opened my senses, up. I think there's something to that, and it seems like there's definitely something to it. I call it kind of like a shamanic death, so to speak. And I've had a lot of people on about that subject. I love that subject, but it opens suffering, opens your senses. And I mean, it's a good. Fortunately, not unfortunate. Suffering's unfortunate, but fortunately, at least there seems to be an upside, because I do think there's a connection to that, and it kind of somehow made me able to see into those realms. I guess that amount of suffering that I went through. It's definitely fascinating for sure how that works. And that I didn't know. I mean, he may have mentioned that and I just forgot, but she became a healer, Robert Salas's wife, after those experiences. And so it's very, very interesting for sure. So that's cool. Definitely. There's an upside. There's a positive. I know there's definitely seems like there's nefarious beings that are up to no good, but I definitely like to believe there's good ones too, positive. And if they've made someone a healer after experiences and stuff like that, that's good. That's a good thing. So, it's like with the Bigfoot thing. Apparently there's good ones and there's some that are not, that may eat people or something.
And there's many experiences where, not only people see Bigfoot, but they see a UFO, generally
I love those. Those are
concurrent
the best.
with the Bigfoot sighting. It's very interesting, and I think that's why you can't find the bones of the the expired big feet, if you will, because they're probably on board the craft in some way, shape, or form, or interrelated in some way.
Yeah, and that definitely they could be like workers or something, and then there could be tribe ones that are physical on the earth, and then those other ones may go back and forth, like dematerialize or whatever. So different things going on, and it's interesting, the native perspective with the phenomenon, and I mean their dances and celebrations, kind of like a celebration of sky people and weird stuff like that. That I had this Don Oscar medicine man on before, and I told him about the beings of light, and he said they go down at Peru and have like weird parties and watch the shining ones in the sky. I was like, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, they're doing ayahuasca.
Yeah, that's what I wonder if they're tripping too. So
Yeah.
which
It
it
seems to help.
helps.
It
Yeah,
seems
it
to help.
opens your
It puts you,
senses.
it
So
opens you up. Yeah, just like
yeah,
a little bit of marijuana every once in a while.
exactly. We got
Well,
it in
hey,
Florida.
I got to say something that brought up a good idea that you guys were just talking about. The reason why you don't find the bones, and there's a couple of reasons. I kind of like the one that it takes about a week for the body to disintegrate if it's not found. But it's always been speculated by most Bigfoot researchers that they carry off their dead, especially if they're not near home. Like if they're traveling between Camp A and Camp B and they die in between, it's been said they carry their dead off. Jesus Payan, you talked about him earlier, Jeff. We had him on the show. One of the stories he's got on a big, it's like a whole decades long thing with this family in Bigfoots. Apparently, they bought this house and they didn't know that it had been built on like sacrificial land, or sacred land. And so the Bigfoot would come by and bother them quite frequently, and not in a nice way. And then eventually, towards the end of the story, the husband that lived in the house, he had his rifle ready. And when the Bigfoot came to bother his family, he came out and started shooting at them. And allegedly, he says he clipped one and it probably killed it. But he noticed just before they were out of range of his rifle that two or three came back for the one he had shot and picked him up and took him with them on their way through back to the woods. So the question is why don't we find their bones? They are either disintegrating rapidly within a week, maybe or less, and then what's left is trace amounts, maybe a knuckle, maybe a fingernail, or their bodies are carried off by surviving relatives and buried.
Yeah, it could certainly be a possibility. There's no question about it. But we don't know. We
We
just
don't,
don't
you know,
know.
too difficult to tell. But if they're as advanced as they're suspected to be, they're probably at the stage of sacrificial burial. So when, you know, Uncle Lefty goes away, they probably bury him and have a ceremony. So
Hmm. That would be nice. That would be a nice thing to do
I,
for them. You know,
I think they're
it it
I think they're
it
at least at that level of
yeah,
sophistication.
I just hate these guys that go out and they say, well, we're going to get us a Bigfoot today. You know, we're going to shoot his ass, and you know
Yeah,
that's horrible. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's absolutely horrible. I mean,
it is.
what's the mindset? And that I think that's why the quote unquote aliens utilize grays, because they're so damn afraid of us. we, we get some wacko that has a weapon, and starts shooting up everything. Oh God,
I
it's
always have
crazy.
wondered why they appear to those people more often, like some of the ones out there that you wouldn't think you would want them to go near. It's like, why are you showing yourself to them? They're gonna shoot you, dude. Come on,
Mhm.
chill out. But Stan Gordon's a cool dude, that investigator that does a lot of UFO Bigfoot stuff up in Pennsylvania. They got a lot of those crazy cases. I
Oh
love
yeah,
those.
yeah.
Those are beautiful. I have his books and stuff too. So Bigfoot and UFOs. Oh, on the last episode of Book of Boba Fett on the Disney, there was a Wookiee Jay that was came after Boba Fett, and he didn't seem exactly like a good Wookiee. I mean,
Yep, I
maybe
saw
he
him.
was a neutral
He was in
Wookiee.
last week's episode. Big
Yeah,
black
yeah,
Wookie.
yeah,
Yeah, I saw him.
yeah, yeah. I was really,
Is that on Disney? The Disney?
Yeah,
yeah,
Disney
and
Plus.
Okay,
it is
yeah.
so good. It is so good. There's
Well, I'll have
also
to
the
also watch it.
Mandalorian,
Oh yeah, of course.
the one with Baby Yoda. But this
Yep.
is a spinoff of that. And it's just about Boba Fett and the underworld and Jabba and all that craziness and him surviving the Sarlacc pit.
Is the
But
new
it's really
season of
good.
is the new season of Mandalorian going now?
It's coming at some point this
So,
year.
yeah,
But
middle of
Okay,
the
okay,
year.
okay. All right.
and then Robert Rodriguez has been directing those episodes of Book of Boba Fett. The guy that did Desperado and all that stuff. He's a good dude, but definitely good. I like Book of Boba Fett because it's like in that seedy, underworld. What is it, Tatooine or whatever? I always say the
Yeah,
names wrong, but
they're in
it's
Mos
just
Espa.
yeah. Boba Fett takes Jabba's place as ruler, as the crime, like the mafia dude. So he's like in charge of it. But it's definitely a blast. I love it. It's worth watching for sure, no doubt about it. Well, so give us some more of your. We got about 7 minutes or 8 minutes or so, but let's get your main links again, Les, so we
Yeah,
can get those out.
yeah. For anyone interested in checking us out and what we do, and we have a full explanation of our mission and things of that nature. We also have various interviews that I've done with people like Melinda Howe and Terry Lovelace and other people, and our website basically is opusnetwork.org, opusnetwork.org. And we also have a book section where if you click on that, any of the books in that section that you click on, we're an Amazon associate. And so we get a commission for any sales that go on. That helps us. We're always trying to raise funds because, of course, it costs money to keep a website and do the things that we do. We also have documentation on various topics that you can read. A lot of it has to do with the abduction phenomena. We also have the omega-3 report, where we took 71 people that believed they had been abducted and compared them with 51 people that were a control group. And it was a research done back in 2010 that was funded by MUFON. And so I was the main investigator and on the project, or the facilitator for it. And you'll find some very interesting facts about these abductees. That number one, they did not have any psychopathology. They weren't fantasy prone, and they had differences in their temporal lobe activity. which is a factor that's quite interesting. And so, if you read the report, I think you'll find that to be something that you'll get some more information out of. So we have a wealth of information there, various resources, and of course the support button on there. If you're looking for help with your experiences, whatever they may be in the paranormal, give us a shout, and we'll be happy to help.
Definitely sounds interesting. I'll check it out some more for sure. For some reason, I know we talked about some Norse type aliens. What are those, like the Palladians and stuff like that? But I've always thought from a fiction horror point of view, like Norse Viking berserker aliens that come and, like, you know, ransack the earth like Mars Attacks kind of thing, or something like that. But you know, with the Vikings, I mean, just looking at how they conquered and stuff, you have to think about, you know, these races too. I mean, surely there would be some out there like that, and they would have already, you know, got us by now or did something.
Well,
Which
it's
they
interesting.
got us.
In the book, I have a picture of the Nordics, and they're very pleasant looking. They look like you and I, very well built, especially the females, and you know, they seem to be in the background, and kind of, you get the feeling that they're involved, but on what level we're not quite sure, because the praying mantises seem to be the ones that are the real controlling factor in any of these abductions, uh, and but you don't hear. I mean, people see them, but you don't get a lot of information with regard to their attitude. And one of the things that we just finished up the phase 1 of the Omega 4 study, where we went out to therapists to get their opinions on their clients that have claimed to have contact with non-human intelligences. So now we're going to go out to those clients to get their feedback. And so one of the things, you know, we're very much interested in is to get the attitude and the overall personality of these entities, and try to better understand them. Is something that I think will be quite interesting.
The praying mantis ones creep me out for some reason. It's just something about it.
Yeah, yeah. Can you
Once you
imagine?
see a 9-foot tall praying mantis in their bedroom, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, no
Nobody.
thanks.
You know, they generally are, you know, like to eat people.
Yeah, it's like the Christopher Walken communion movie where they're on the bus or whatever, and he's like,
Yeah,
whatever he
yeah.
says to him.
Yeah.
Christopher Walken.
And don't forget, after praying mantis's mate, the female chews the male's head off.
Right.
Off, like,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So how much more would they do it to us?
Well, we scared the shit out of people now. So
Yeah. Well, mostly they just, I know there's that painter guy, and I just forgot his name, but I had somebody on about his documentary, David Huggins or Higgins, and he paints all the alien things, but there's praying mantises, and he claimed he had a sex situation. He seems pretty like he's telling the truth.
Oh, yeah.
Love and saucers. And he does all the paintings. David Huggins.
Hutchinson, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had someone on that did the documentary, the dude that made the documentary, but those are some pretty, there's actually one painting where there's a little Bigfoot in there, like a little small one with red eyes. So those are some interesting paintings. I know you can get the book of all those paintings and look through them, and it's by this lady from Israel. I forget her name. Farza, something like that. But the book she did with him. Well, Les, it's been great having you on. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just don't forget, people, please check out our book, The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact, because you'll help us help people in that regard.
Definitely, and I'll check that out for sure. And I hope you get some Book of Boba Fett hookup at some point.
Yeah, well, I'll be checking that out right after I hang up here.
That dude that's in there, his name's like Tamara Morrison. He's a big New Zealand dude. He plays Boba Fett, but born on the same day as me, Capricorn, December 26th. And bald, rocking the bald. That's right. He does a
Yeah.
good job. A lot of sand people in there too. But I hope you enjoy it. It's worth the watch.
Well,
All right.
I'll tell you a quick little story. We can do this after you stop the show, but about Dan Aykroyd.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead. Well, you can do it real. If you can do it
Real quick.
Yeah.
Basically, I was written up in a MUFON journal, and one of the questions in the journal was, "Who would you like to meet in MUFON?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to meet Dan Aykroyd." And so, about a month after the article came out, I got a call from the head of MUFON, and he says, "It would be okay to give Dan Aykroyd your contact information." I said,
Cool.
"Hell yeah!" So, another month or two goes by, and I'm working in the garden or something, and I get a phone call, and it's Dan Aykroyd.
Awesome.
So we start talking, and I find out that he's had experiences. His mother has had experiences. His father wrote a book, and a matter of fact, a book about ghosts and mediums, and that's what a lot of the Ghostbusters was based on. And so he
Cool.
eventually sent me the book. All right, that his father wrote, and oh my God, fascinating stuff, absolutely fascinating stuff.
I'll have
But
to check that book out. I think I've seen it, but I meant to get it and never did. But I'll check that out. That's cool. Cool Dan Aykroyd story.
yeah,
We
there
appreciate
you
it.
go.
Thank you.
All right, man.
All right. Have a good
Thanks
weekend.
a lot. I appreciate it.
You're
Thanks.
welcome. Take care. Everybody have a good weekend. Good
You
night,
too.
everybody.
Bye bye.